they going?
He said the English Channel, but he's going down the channel. They search for bombs.
Oh, right, okay.
Second World War bombs.
The reason that I chose Cardiff was that almost 20 years ago to the day I did a day skipper's course in Barry Sea School, and I thought it might be a good idea to go back down, and the weather looked okay for about a week. So we spent a little time planning this, and what we came up with was that we could probably do it in about 6 hours, which the tides were just about right for 6 hours from Sharpness through Portishead on down to Cardiff. Here we are now, we're leaving 2 hours before high water. This allows us to go against the tide almost up to the Severn Bridge, and then it's sort of a springboard down the Severn under the bridges, and taking advantage of quite a high tide. And in some places we were actually doing about 14 miles an hour. An hour and a half later we've actually gone past Knollwood Rocks, the 2 miles above the bridge, and we're coming down under the bridge at about 10 miles an hour. And in the distance, your middle distance, you can actually see the new bridge, which is 3 miles from about here. And the guy who's passing us on the right now is in his survey ship, is off down to around Land's End, we believe. We had to talk to him before we left. And he's looking for Second World War bombs that were discharged after the raids on the Midlands and the West Coast. Just coming down to Portishead, actually Avonmouth, and crossing the channel to go down closer to Portishead Pier so that we could get a shot of Portishead Pier before we turn to starboard and down the Bristol Channel to follow the buoys all the way across into Cardiff itself. And just on the left of the screen there, you can see Portishead Pier just about disappearing now. At one time, of course, before this Marina was there, you stopped at Avonmouth, threw your anchor out and dried out there, but today people wouldn't even think about it. And just about half right off the starboard bow, you can see the first buoy in the buoy channel, and there's the stern view looking back towards Avonmouth. We're now doing, taking advantage of the tide, we're now doing about 8-9 miles an hour, 7 or 8 knots. On I think about 2,000 revs, and the engine seems to cope with that, and we're doing 2/3 of the engine speed, so we've got a little bit in reserve. That's the view, stern view again of Avonmouth as we're going down. In fact, what I actually did was make a list of all the various buoys, and it marks out the what would be the port hand side of the channel. But as we're going down, of course, you go down on the right hand side and follow the various buoys across. And in the very, very far distance, just to the right of the forward mast, you can see Wales. And Newport's about half right, and Cardiff is where the lamp is. Once again, we're looking at Portishead as we go on by over the stern. In fact, that's, if you were coming upstream, that's what you'd be looking at. And And on your left side again, you can see a service boat coming up with, I think what they do is service the various wind farms that are on the Welsh coast. And once again, we're doing 8, 9, 10 miles an hour, sometimes 12 in places. At this point, we've got about 2.5 hours to make it across before we run out of tide. Once again, the stern shot over the stern, looking back towards Portishead. What we do have on board, we got a GPS iPad, and we've got a navigation facility on that with the various buoys marked in, so you can actually just put your fingers on and open them up and pick out the name of each one and look to see whether it's north, south, east or west cardinal buoy by the shaped triangles on it and its colour and the various other colours. And we're navigating through the buoys. Some of them you can't see. You can see them on the chart because you can actually extend the view or bring it closer. In the distance, Cardiff is sort of about half right, and where the mast is almost where Penarth is where we're heading. And as we go, as the bows come around a little more to your starboard side, to the right side, you can see the seaweed on the right-hand side. We're almost out of tide. We've got about 4 or 5 miles to go. And on the left, you can't see on your left port side, is Flatholm and Steepholm, the 2 islands that sit in the middle of the Bristol Channel. View over the bows now are about 1 mile or 2 miles short of Cardiff, and Cardiff is half right. All the white buildings and the Cardiff docks. And just a little bit to the right-hand side of the boat, you see a little point sticking up, and that's the church in Penarth. And the pier is just to the right of the mast now, Penarth Pier, and there is a marker where we turn to the right and follow the channel up. We've now been going almost, I suppose, 5 hours. It takes about another hour to get in through the Boyd Channel and into the barrage itself. And we've just turned to starboard, and it's a very short approach, only a few hundred yards, and we're through a big concrete entrance to the barrage itself and the 3 locks that service it. We spoke to the lock keeper, and we've got to wait about 3/4 of an hour as this one is coming out. And he'll give us a call when he feels it's time for us to go in. So what we decided to do was move over to your right starboard side and just lean against the wall and have a cup of coffee and sit and wait and take a few photographs. And there we are, the gates are just beginning to open, and we're now in Cardiff. And a lot of people seem surprised by the size of these locks, and there's probably 60 or 70 foot deep, whereas on the Severn, 20 foot or 25 foot seems a lot. These are ginormous, but I don't suppose they're that big if commercial boats are coming in and out, not that they do into the barrage. And the commercial side of the dock is still a big lock gate, and that's either up to Newport or into Cardiff docks themselves, which is just a little further up the Severn on your port side. And a local police force have had a little talk to them, and we took some of their photographs and asked if we could take their photographs, if they cared to turn the other way, and they all turned the other way dutifully, which we thought was the right thing to do. And I think this is the end of what a lot of people said was impossible, and we thought it was not impossible. So we set about planning, and here we are, 6 hours and about 15 minutes later. For those that have got yachts and have not looked at it, the bridges do open and close, or certainly on one of them. I'm not sure whether it's just the middle bridge. Quite often you see them when we were moored around the corner, they're opening and closing, then a big mast appears from nowhere and there's a yacht underneath it. And this opens out into Cardiff Bay with all sorts of facilities for paddleboarding and goodness knows what else. And we have got permission to tie up on your left port side, just outside Penarth Marina.
Nice day.
But what we didn't realise is someone else had actually taken our place, and it's the Challenger, which is a big sailing ship which allows or gives people sailing experience with disability. And what we couldn't understand is why the powerboats can go backwards and forwards sort of flat open inside, unless it's something to do with aerating the water for the fish life and everything else in it. In fact, I used to belong to something called the, I think it was the English Parliamentary Waterways Group, and we used to go down to the Houses of Parliament, and this was 30 years ago, and discuss how to and persuade people to cough up the cash with renovating various canals. And we've just now done the full circle and just about coming back to the entrance to the lock and to the location for the mooring for the night, just on the Dolphin, or one of the Dolphins outside Penarth Marina. These concrete platforms are called Dolphins, and where the Challenger is there, we spoke the day before to the manager of the marina itself, which is just over to your right side. And he said, come in, but the Challenger had popped in and beat us to the mooring. So what we're going to do is go about and go stern in. There's no problem with water level going up and down overnight. And just quite happy to tie on to the nearest Dolphin and use the ladders to get up and down. And of course we also had the use of the facilities in the main office of Penarth Marina, the showers and goodness knows what else. And then out we went uptown to Wetherspoons and had a few beers and came back ready for a very early start the next morning to make our way back to Portishead.